just about to get started. We'll give it another 20, 30, 40 seconds or so for people to join. This is a day of new things on my end. Typically, I stream. I do live events. I'll introduce myself in a second. I'll do our live events on my personal page, and I'm now switching to our business page. I understand this is a better way to go, as instructed or suggested from Facebook. But so that's the first new thing. So we're shifting from one page to another. The second one is the fact that I'm also trying for the first time on Instagram. So 2 new things for me this morning. By the way, this session, which I hold every week or almost every week on Friday, 10 a.m., I usually, up until today, I put it here on Facebook. I put it here on YouTube. I put it over there, Instagram, and being recorded to our podcast as well. So 4 ways, used to be 3, now 4 ways to consume the information. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dani Beit-Or. I'm a real estate investor. I live in Southern California. I have been a real estate investor for 18 years, or just about 18 years. I started buying properties when I was 26. I think I made my first investment, maybe 27. While I still lived in another country, in Tel Aviv, Israel, was a high-tech person. Oh, hang on. See, one recording has not started yet. 1 second, please. And about 16 plus years ago, I moved to the United States and started continued investing in real estate. And between 2004, when I moved, to now, which is 16 plus years, I have been only doing out-of-state investing, which means I live in California, and everything I've done was always I can't see video. I get a note that you can't see video. Maybe it's on your end. For me, it shows as everything is fine. On Facebook page, if you can hear me and see me, say one thing or another. I have one. I apologize. We are doing things a little bit differently today. If you can see me and hear me on the Facebook page, I would appreciate you responding to it, saying we can hear you, we can see you, or one or the other. I have one person saying we cannot see the video. Okay. So I will assume there's maybe one person who's unable to see it. On mine, it's showing everything is fine. So I don't know if I can change anything differently. Okay. So it's possible. Thank you. It's possible that one person is having. Okay. I think Pamela, it's on your end. I hope that's the case. Technology. If you can hear me, that's fine too. Hopefully it will be corrected. I'm also trying to stream this, or I'm streaming this on as we speak on YouTube and Instagram. Going back to the content, I really want to respect your time. Since 2004 until today, I have helped investors buy probably a little bit over 4,500 rental properties in different U.S. metros, and I've done about 100 flips, also close to 100 flips in different U.S. metros. So in my career of 16 years, I've seen a boom, a bust, a boom. Are we going into another bust, possibly, or a downturn? So that's something that I've been involved on a very large scale, my own portfolio, and working with others, working with investors and helping them going through all of those things. And although I live in Southern California, I've never invested in California. It was always out of state kind of an approach. And I have teams and property managers and realtors and lenders, etc. Whatever I need for me and my investors to execute everything remotely. I only saying that not to kind of tap on my own shoulder and show off. I'm actually trying to say to give you perspective of my background and experience. So everything that I will say moving forward will come with context of things. So in simple terms, I have a little bit of experience. Now, I would say over my career, I have always tried to find great or good investment opportunities for myself and my investors, right? The gems. And the one thing that every once in a while when I speak to an investor, it comes up, it's like, will you let me know if you have something of a gem, of the diamond in the rough that I can buy? And I would be very much interested in doing it. And I hear it not too often, but I hear it every once in a while. And usually my answer is, listen, that doesn't really exist, or it's super, super rare. And I'll be happy to let you know. But, I do have a priority list. My priority list is the investors who already worked with me in the past and invested throughout in the past will be on the first tier of getting those list of gems and diamond in the rough. And only if nobody from that list will bite into it, it will go to our database. Now, I've always tried over the years to find those gems, but without compromising. When I say compromising, it's very important for me as a person who's been through a boom, a bust, a boom, and now whatever that is, to not compromise on safety or resilience. My formula, my investing formula has always been resilience oriented. Resilience being when things go bad with the economy, how resilient or what are the chances of the type of investment we usually do are going to be to survive the bad times, which I always assumed it's coming, right? I don't know when, but sometimes throughout the period of holding my properties or my investors holding the properties, it will come, as we see right now. By the way, as we speak, in our ecosystem, my company Simply Do It, our ecosystem is many hundreds, of properties, in multiple US metros, and we have very small number of issues resulted from the COVID-19 situation. It's not that we don't have, but as resulting from the current times, very few issues, and even those, for the most part, are being addressed and being taken care of, being resolved. Every situation is a little bit different, and I'm talking about, maybe 10 issues out of many hundreds of properties. The more severe issues we have with tenants are actually escalated from tenants that we're having problem with before this COVID-19 situation started, and that's has gotten to be worse. Now, going back to the diamonds in the rough, the gems. Let me tell you a little story. I look at properties on a daily basis. Nowadays, I try to do it in some more of an semi-automated way that I generate properties from different resources, and we review a lot of properties. I look at a lot of properties every week, and I'm constantly looking for those diamonds, gems, diamond in the rough. And I've always knew there is a niche that I felt I'm not addressing properly. And the reason I'm not addressing properly is it is to execute that niche, what I call the hybrid property, is a little bit more difficult. So I nickname it the hybrid property. Some of you may know it in a very similar way as the BRRRR, the BRRRR. It's a very similar concept. The BRRRR property means buy, rehab or renovate, refinance, rent, refinance, repeat, or something along those lines, which I really think is a crappy name, right? I like to call it the hybrid. The reason I call it the hybrid, because it's a type of property that it falls, slip through the cracks. And what do I mean by that? On one end, here's a property in a fairly okay condition. Let's just say it's not a good condition. It needs some TLC, right? It needs some work. But here's the problem. On one hand, the retail buyer with a conventional mortgage would not be able to buy it because the house is in a enough of a stage or state of not passing appraisal. An appraisal will come into this house and will say, wait, here's a property, doesn't have floorings, the HVAC is off or not working, so the house, even if it's okay, is not livable in the standards of a conventional appraisal. So that's not going to fly. So the retail buyer, may be an investor as a rental or a homeowner, cannot afford to touch this house, A, because there is would not pass inspection, so they cannot buy it with a conventional mortgage, and B, even if they can somehow buy it with a conventional mortgage, let's say it can somehow pass inspection, they still need $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 ish to buy, to fix it up, and so that means they need more cash. So we have a problem here. On one end, here's a beautiful or nice property, and I have one. By the way, as we speak, I have one that we are already submitted 2 offers that were rejected. We are now submitting, in the Dallas area, submitting a third offer today. Here's what's going on with this house. The house is pretty big. It's about 4,300 square feet, which is bigger than we usually buy. The Zestimate, right? If we believe the Zestimate is around $330,000, right? Maybe right, maybe wrong. It's a 5 bedrooms, I think 4 bathrooms, or 5, 3.5. Again, typically it's a bigger than we usually see a house. From the photos, you can tell there's a problems, right? Our agent went out there and took some videos and looked at it and came back and said, Danny, here's the situation. The house will not pass inspection because there's no floorings, either carpet or floorings or something. It's just was torn out, probably stinks. By the way, it's a 2006 build, so it's not an super old house. 2006, in a good area. Schools are okay. I would say C schools in the area, although the community is a nicer community with HOA. I think there's even a pool. Maybe $20 a month HOA, so it's a very nice pocket within the metro or within the area. But the house needs work. In order to pass inspection, it needs to be, at minimum, put floorings, fix some holes that it has. There's holes in some areas big enough for an appraisal to be concerned about, which is an easy fix, right? And that will be enough to pass appraisal. Again, this house is not passing appraisal at the moment. It's just not suitable for living just yet, but it's that close. Now, it's worth about $330,000. The bank owned wants 270 or 275. I can't remember right now. 270, I think, or 275, right? And it's been sitting on the market for more than 3 months. Now, if we are, first of all, finding a property like this, I probably have to look at more than 300 properties, maybe even close to 400 properties to find the one gem. And the first problem with those properties is that, it's to finding them all together. Now, this property, on one hand, is not going to be purchased by a conventional buyer, a retail buyer. The flippers may not see enough profit in this property on the other hand, right? So a flipper can come in and easily do a flip here, but the flipper may not see enough profit or upside here. So the flippers are not interested. So we have a property that the flipper investors are not really interested, and we have the retail buyers can't really afford it or can't really buy it, and that's what I call slip through the cracks, right? Now, if I am a cash buyer, or if I come with a specialized mortgage and I take this property would probably need $20,000 to $30,000 worth of repairs, and those are the repairs that we know. If we want to put it as a rental, kind of keep it simple. We cannot even put it back on the market as a retail, but let's just say we want to keep it as a rental because that's the true value. So it needs if we want to put it as a rental, paint throughout, no doubt. It just looks disgusting, right? By the way, it can still pass with the current paint, but it just looks bad and old and unattractive. So fresh coat of paint, flooring, whatever we decide to do, carpets, flooring, this type of flooring throughout. It's a big house, so that's going to add up. According to the seller disclosure, it's going to need a new roof and it's going to need a new HVAC. Now, we don't know for a fact that that's the case. It just says so in the Explorer. We need to do an inspection to make sure those things are correct. Now, there's a very good chance, because this is a 2006 house, right, that the roof is still in good shape, maybe for another 5 to 10 years, maybe needs some repairs, and the HVAC is in good shape, maybe needs some maintenance. So we don't know that, but let's just say new roof, let's call it 15,000, big house, and the HVAC, let's call it another 5, right? So we have 20 right over there, and probably around 10 to 15 in the painting, flooring, cleaning, touch-up things, $30,000 to $35,000 to make this house very, very nice. Now, again, the flipper won't touch it. The retail buyer won't touch it as well, because there's not enough margin. The buyer who wants to buy it and keep it as a rental is the one who's really going to benefit from this kind of a house. Now, this is among the different gems or diamond in the rough that I see. This is probably one of the better ones. Most of them, they may need less work. Maybe a little bit older house. Maybe needs a little bit more smaller house, needs less work. So they're still out there, but they qualify exactly the same way. But the problem with this kind of an investment, what I call the hybrid is renovate and rent. So it's not renovate and sell. It's not just buy. It's kind of fall through the cracks. So it's a remodeling or a simple renovation job and put it as a rental. Now, in order to fully conduct these transactions, there are a couple of things that need to take place. Number one, one of the most difficult parts is finding. So if you come into my world, and I don't do screen sharing right now, I run Excels in multiple metros with multiple, hundreds of properties, different criterias, different analysis, indicators, indexes, in order to find the few that are what I call the diamonds. So first of all, finding, it's a very time-consuming, job. Second, if we want to buy it, if we have cash, great. If we don't have cash, we need alternative financing. Okay, we have connections to either hard money or other types of lenders, not hard money, that can come and help us as long as we meet certain criteria. So there's definitely part of the, you see, this is not a let's buy property kind of a thing. This is a system, a proper, correct system and processes in place in order to support such a transaction. So we need finding, we need the financing or cash, however we see fit. So that's the second thing. Now we need a system that will go to the house, will inspect the house, traditional inspection. We also need someone that will go to us and give us a clear scope of work, what needs to be done, right? So the inspector won't tell us what needs to be done, scope of work, will tell us what's wrong with the house, right? The inspector won't say, well, you need floorings or you need a paint. They're going to say, listen, your AC is bad, your fridge is non-exist, your whatever, right? So we need to get the input from the inspection. We need to get the input from our team on the ground. The team on the ground would be a realtor and a property manager. We need to make sure we have the right contractors or a general contractor, depending what we want to accomplish here, that will go reliable, trustworthy, experienced, licensed, bonded, insured, all of those things. We have to make sure we have the right person that can go to the house, understand what we're trying to do here, okay? Come back with a scope, come back with a budget, and then perform the work once we decide to close on the house. So we have to have all those things lined up, right? They're out there, but putting them all together is the tough part. And then when we are done with putting those together, we need to make sure we have a proper project supervision and progress, on the property. And we need to make sure the property management, a property management or another option solution will come in and manage the property. There are ways how to handle this. Now, my company simply do it. This is what we do day in, day out. So we have, I wouldn't say everywhere, but in multiple markets, a management solution, either teams on the ground or a different type of a solution that that it's more technology oriented. We have GC working with a large company that has a GC presence, in probably 20 to 25 US metros. We have property managers, lenders that can do different type of lenders if needed. So it's all to do something like this, especially if you want to do it remotely. Let's say most of my clients, they come from the Bay Area and they want to invest, or they come from California altogether, want to buy something like this in another state, and they don't want to hustle. They don't want to trouble. Now, this is real estate. There's always going to be hustle and trouble, right? This is not buy and forget and don't worry about anything. There's always going to be hustle. But one of the things that we are doing is that we're making sure that the renovation budget is not more than 30 to 35,000 ish. Okay. The reason we don't want to go above that is because we want to keep it simple. There's already enough complexity here. So the house that I have in mind, think about it this way. Let's say I need to do all of the following. So I need a roofer for the roof. That's one contractor type category. I need a painter for the interior, right? That's a second contractor that I need to work with. I need a flooring person, okay? I need an HVAC person. So that's already 4. I need probably some sort of a handyman position or function that will get the fridge, connect the fridge, make sure it's working. Do all those little punch lists, small stuff. This light is not working. This light is broken. This knob is missing. All of those things. So I need the handyman kind of a position. I need someone that will, I need a locksmith to replace the locks. I'm probably gonna need a landscaper, even a minimal one, just to freshen up. I saw another house yesterday. This one is also in Dallas, in Arlington, right? And the agent went there. And this house needs work. It's actually cheaper. It's a 3-2, 1,800 change square feet, built in 1984. I actually spoke to the seller of that house because I wanted to understand a little bit better. This house shows more signs of foundation problems, which we'll need to evaluate. The seller just put it on the market 2 weeks ago. And I think he bought it at some auction or something like that. I think he has complete disconnect between the value of the property and what he's asking for, and relatively what the house requires. This second house would need a new roof, new HVAC, paint throughout, flooring throughout, dumpster to clear everything, new garage door, new appliances. Probably at minimum new countertops, assuming we can keep the current cabinets, but just replace the countertops. Landscaping, oh my God, it's not a backyard, it's a jungle. So this is not just someone who comes in and do some trimming or mowing the lawn. You need someone to come in and to clear the jungle out. So that's not just the landscaping, that's just more than that. Plus we're going to need possibly foundation. There's probably a foundation. He wasn't able to tell me exactly what's going on. So the second house in Arlington right now is for me unattractive. Probably looking north of 35,000 to make that happen. Probably close to 50,000, which is still can make a good deal. But relatively, what the asking price is versus the comps. There's too much of a gap here, right? I think the comps are around anywhere from 170 to 190. He has it on 170. If we put it at this house would probably need to be purchased at least at 100,000, if not less. And I don't sense the seller is motivated just yet. He may get there. But the problem is, once we know how to purchase it with the renovation, to address the renovation, Then we need to know who's going to manage or handle the renovation part. And again, I'm keeping it simple. So even if I go to house number 1, which I have 5 main categories: roof, HVAC, paint, flooring, handyman, 6. Each one of them is very simple, but we need someone. If we're not there, we need someone to coordinate that event, that project. Not complicated, right? For me, a roofer comes, he knows exactly what needs to be done, and he can do it, while the painter, who knows exactly what needs to be done, can do. So it's very simple. Every task is very simple. I don't have a lot of overlapping. I'm not dealing with anything complicated in terms of renovation, cabinets, moving walls, plumbing, etc. I keep it very simple. The flooring, same thing. Landscaping, same thing. Handyman, multiple items. So rather simple per task, but someone need to coordinate that, because there's already few 6 functions, main function involved. It's probably better to have some sort of a GC function handling it, some sort of a supervision handling it, assuming we are not going to do it ourselves. So to wrap up this session, I call it the hybrid. The hybrid is truly an opportunity to buy at an excellent price a house that needs some work. Let's call it TLC. So you probably want to, if that's of an interest to you, then find that house or talk to us. We scan on a daily basis. We have, finding a house like this, it's all about systems and processes. Finding, analyzing, evaluating, initial evaluation, for budget, then purchasing, proper scope of work, someone who will do the work, and then someone all about systems and processes, which we have in place and have done many times. And again, in order to keep it rather simple, what we do is we don't go over 30 to 35,000 ish budget for the remodeling. Otherwise, it can be a little bit too much to handle, at least from my experience. I also want to say that if you are real estate investors and you are looking to expand your knowledge and horizon, there are probably a few things I want to share with you that we do on regularly. Number 1, this session that you're now listening is recorded on YouTube, Facebook, and our podcast, and actually now on Instagram for the first time, on Instagram as well. So you can consume it, right? So you can go to our podcast and listen to this session and many other sessions that have been recorded in the past, right? So the podcast, you can go to the podcast or on our YouTube channel. Also, if you want to get more information, more knowledge, we have anywhere from free courses to paid courses on resmarts.co, resmarts.co. Let me put that, I'm going to put all the links. resmarts.co, we started a few months ago, and it's there for educational knowledge. RE like real estate, smarts like your brain with an S, smarts.co, not .com. There are paid courses there. There are free courses there. You can definitely go out there and see what whatever suits you best. And also our YouTube channel, I'll put that there as well. And lastly, we hold this on a weekly basis. If you wanna join us here every week, that'll be great. If you want to get notification on events, webinars that we do, of course, special properties, ongoing properties, by all means, make sure you are registered on our mailing list so we can actually inform you. Remember, when I find a gem, which is, I call it 1 in 500 properties, first of all, I send it to the people who already, I call it tier number 1, those active Simply Do It investors, those who already invested with us. I give them the credit that they gave us the confidence, right? Then it goes out to the second tier. The second tier is people on our mailing list. So if you're not on our mailing list, you're not going to get to see all those gems that we find. And I want to make sure that you know this is not something that we find on a weekly basis. I wish we don't. Now, if you have questions regarding this session, You can feel free to put them on the comments. They can be, your questions can be related to the topic. Your questions can be related to real estate in general. Your questions can be related, what am I seeing during current times with the COVID-19 situation out there? Because I'm exposed to multiple metros, and I talk to property managers and realtors in multiple markets on a weekly basis. So I get kind of a good sense of what's going on out there. Feel free to post your questions here on the comments. You can send your questions to us at a later time through any of those channels, email, Facebook, YouTube, maybe Instagram. If you're on Instagram and I'm not responding, please make sure you try to get a hold of me in a different way. I admit I'm still new to the Instagram, using it. I'm not new to Instagram, not really one of the way I've been marketing myself or our company. So with that said, I'm going to wait for 10, 15, 20 seconds. I want to see if there are any questions coming. I'm just going to use this time to put some more comments, links to different things that we have to offer so you guys can benefit. Give me a second here. I'm collecting all the data. Okay. All right. I hope I have all the main resources for you. Remember that I put ton of content out there. I try to not do sales pitch. Maybe just inform about different things, but to really provide content to you to educate. I believe that if you are educated, you make better decisions, and if you are interacting with someone who's not a pushy salesperson, you will probably probably appreciate that person more. I hope so. That's always been my kind of my mindset. And there's a question from Curtis. If a rehab is more than 35K, do you just walk away or do you renegotiate the purchase price? Curtis, excellent question. Well, first of all, how far from 35? If we are really, really, really far from 35, I will maybe look at it differently than if I'm just maybe a little bit, above 35. But I'll give you my answer as this. Anytime, Curtis, I love this question. It's an excellent question. Anytime I'm about to walk away from a property that I have under contract, anytime, for whatever reason, well, almost every time, I will go back and before terminating, I will say, listen, I'm interested. The inspection came so bad or so poorly. I am super concerned about this house. I'm about to terminate, but before I terminate, I will make you my last offer. But so in my mind, I'm already terminating. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I'm already done with this deal. But just 1 minute before I'm completely, walking away, I have nothing to lose by saying, listen, I want you to drop the price by another $25,000. But very important, if you don't do it properly, it will not be accepted properly on the other end, right? So let me explain that better. We work with agents for the most part, not always, but for the most part, I'm the buyer. Let's say I'm the buyer. I have my agent, and there's another seller's agent and another seller at the other end. Right? So 4 functions, right? Buyer, agent, seller, right? If I just tell him that I will pay, I will buy it for $25,000 or a reduction, or I'm walking away. That, remember, there's a person on the other end that may not be, received, nicely. So I always take the few minutes and I tell my agent, listen, I want you to deliver the message as follows. I'm I'm about to walk away. But the reason I'm going to walk away is with 1, 2, 3, 4. I try to be very specific. I'm still interested. And I make sure they know what the reasons I'm walking away, because here's, I've been a seller many times. Here's what's going on when you're a seller. It's very important to understand the mind or the psyche of the seller. The seller, well, it depends, right? Motivated, less motivated, of course, everybody's different. But even a not motivated seller, if I tell him, listen, your house needs a new roof, needs a foundation, needs this, I am just disclose that information to him or his agent, and he will need to disclose that information to the next buyer. So he's knowledgeable about those things now. I made sure of that. And if he's knowledgeable about those things, then he will kind of say, okay, I'm going to put it back on the market, wait for another seller, a buyer, who will come back and ask for those things. While I have a buyer here who's, although all those issues, is still interested in buying, right? So I will try to come back and not just, shove my request for reduction in his face. I will try to smooth it in. I said, listen, I'm not trying to lowball you. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm just, listen, the house is, I need to spend more money here. And I am, still interested, but not at all costs. I'm an investor. And if you're not okay with it, it's okay. We can walk away. But if you are willing to come down, or maybe we can find a way somehow, let's talk about it. But there's a very simple sentence that I love, about those things. Money fixes, simple, and money fixes everything, right? So if a house needs more work than 35, it's just more money. I need to bring the money over. So that's just something I want you to understand, that kind of the mindset. The second aspect of your question for me is the 35,000. The second question is this: let's say you have the ability. Let's say the house needs 60,000, and the seller went down and agreed to your price request of price reduction. The question for me now is, do you have a way to finance it, right? So this is now has nothing to do with the seller. It has to be with your own personal ability. Now, if you're a cash buyer and you have that, perfect, no problem. If you're someone who's doing it with financing, it really depends what kind of financing, and if you have that additional funds available. So now the question is also related to you. So maybe first make sure you're okay. If he comes back and says, I will reduce the price, then you have the money, to the 60,000 in this case, to finish the house. But if you don't, and if he comes down, what are you going to do? So that's why I love this question so much. So it's kind of very keen on the situation. So I really appreciate it, you're asking, and I hope I was able to provide the answer properly on the two aspects of it: the actual budget, and how to work with the seller on reducing the price. I never just ask. I always try to smooth my answer. I always remember there's a person on the other end. Sometimes it's a more emotional person, as someone that's their house, and someone is a bank or another investor. But there's always some emotional aspect to it. Nobody wants to be dictated. Perfect. Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate it. Let's see if there are other questions. Ooh. Okay. I got actually people joining on Instagram. That means I'm probably live there. If there are questions on the Instagram, I'm now watching. Let me just put some links here that I talked about earlier. Hopefully that will benefit them as well. I will wait a few more seconds to see if other questions are coming, not just Curtis. And then if no questions are coming, no additional questions, we will wrap it up. Okay, guys, I'm just buying a little bit of time here to see if we have more questions, and before we may be a wrap. So bear with me here. I also know there's a delay with Facebook when they kind of show the comments. It takes another 20 seconds easily. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer. Okay. Okay. Let's oh, Curtis, one more. Yeah. Thank you. My man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I love when people ask and interact. That's the whole reason I'm doing it. You know, speaking here just by myself, I'm okay with it, but it's so much better when people, interact. So I really appreciate it, Curtis. Another one, please. Is there a minimum ROI percentage that you stick to? What is your margin of error with all the estimates? Wow, it's a good question. So probably around 10% would be an additional budget I would factor in. I would probably play with it a little bit depending on the more, see, people use rule of thumbs, 5%, 10%, 50%, which is fine. You learned that, the more complexity there is, the probably like, let's say if I need 4 functions to work on house or 7 functions, right? So the more functions there are, the more complexity. That is more things. So I would probably move from 5 to 10 to 15% in the margin of error. Now, ROI is a very good question, and you know what? I'm probably going to do another session just on that, and I think I even have a video on that as well. I'm going to keep it simple, try to keep it short. I am looking at the ROI for this type of a transaction as a rental property. When I evaluate rental properties ROI, I'm usually looking over a period of 5 years or more, not the first year, 5 years or more, and I will explain that in a second, of 15% on average per year, 15, yes, on my initial investment, 15 or so. Now, let me explain how do I get to this number, because that's a lot of people, when I tell them 15, sometimes 20% on my money, like, it's probably a scam. There's probably something wrong. There's probably, too good to be true. Yes, this is too good to be true, but let me explain the numbers before you dismiss the large number, okay? Now, let's put aside for just 1 second the renovation, all of that, right? Let's just put that aside. When I look at the rental property, because when we're done with renovating this house, it's a rental. We have how much we put in, we have how much the rent, we have how much the value, So I'm going to just say, let's put that phase behind us and talk about the ROI. I look at the ROI on the rental properties in 3 factors. There are 3 ROIs aspect or factors that create the total ROI, okay? So I'm looking at the total ROI. ROI number 1 or factor number 1, the cash on cash. I get a rent coming in, and I have expenses, mortgage, property taxes, insurance, property management, repairs or maintenance, property management, leasing fee, HOA, vacancy, right? Hopefully I didn't miss anything. So I have realistic expenses, and I always use realistic expenses. I'm not trying to be overly optimistic or worst case scenario. I used to use worst case scenarios for years, and I don't know if you've tried that, but every time I use the worst case scenario, I ended up with the worst case. And when you end up with the worst case, what do? You throw that deal away. I have a cemetery full of great deals that I didn't do because they did not survive the worst case scenario. Nothing does. So I try to be with the numbers as accurate as I can. And if I don't know and I have to make an assumption, I'm going to make a conservative assumption, but not radically conservative. If I'm not sure if the rent is $1,600 or $1,700, I'll go with the $1,600. Okay. If I'm not sure if the maintenance is $100 a month or $75 a month, I'll go with 100 or something in between. So I will always go with a little bit more conservative, but not overly conservative. So number 1, rent, expenses, cash flow, actual cash flow after mortgage, actual cash flow after mortgage and all of those mortgage and all of those expenses. So that's cash on cash is part number 1. Part number 2, I'm going to use appreciation, but I want to be very careful. I'm not going to use appreciation in the conventional term of it. I'm going to use inflation rate appreciation. The fact that, let's say, Dallas did 7% last year or in the past 2 years, I'm just making it up, right? As a number, for me, it's irrelevant. I cannot depend on that. That's speculating. But over time, even in times like now, over time, we have inflation in this country, 2.5%, 3% that creeps up over time, right? So the value of my house is going to creep up over time, will keep up with inflation. So I'm going to keep up with inflation, maybe be a little bit positive on that, just by 0.5%, just because historically that's what we've seen. Real estate is over time does a little bit better than inflation. Now, I'm talking about over time, 5 or 10 years. That's going to happen in that period of time. It will kind of go up and down. But what's important is how is this performance going to be in 5 or in 10 years, right? So I am not interested, and I'm not analyzing a rental property, its performance in the first year. That doesn't tell me anything. Usually it's the worst year. 5 years is the minimum time frame I'm going to look into analyzing to give me a real figure, okay, more realistic. So we talked about cash on cash, the cash flow, inflation rate appreciation. So I do factor it, but very conservatively. And the last thing I'm going to factor in is the principal reduction, which means equity. So I'm building equity in the house, on an annual basis by the mortgage, the mortgage payments. The mortgage payments include mortgage principal and interest, mainly interest in the first years and less principal, but not zero. So slowly I start. See, when you let's say you buy a house, let's just keep it simple. Let's say your mortgage is $100,000. And you purchase this house, it's a rental, and month after month after month after month, you're slowly paying the principal. Let's say 5 years have gone by, and now you owe $90,000. Okay, that's $10,000 equity, not in your pocket. Not in your pocket. Something happened with the lighting here for a second, but in the walls of the house. Can you tap into it? Yes, you can. How? Well, it's not a ATM, but you refinance. It's there. You sell the house, it's there. So that's actual money in the walls, not as an ATM. I can go and use it tomorrow. I will chip off a piece of the drywall and go to the supermarket and buy something. But it's there. It's yours. It's accumulating. So the number 3, every year my equity increases by the fact that I'm paying the mortgage principal down slowly, slowly, slowly. People ignore it. Now, if you're buying cash, that's not going to happen. You don't have that privilege. Okay, so we're going to eliminate that. But most of us do buy with financing. By the way, even if you buy this gem of a property with cash, doesn't mean you have to keep it as a cash. You can refinance in 6 months, in a year, depending how you want to go about it. You don't have to hold it cash. You can use the cash as a strategy, which we're going to help you to buy it and secure it, and then bring the financing at the later phase, in a month, in 6 months, in a year, whatever. There's different ways how to go about it. We're not going to go into that. So when so those are the 3 factors: cash flow, appreciation, equity increase for mortgage, the principal pay down. Now I use those $3 marks, combine them, and compare them based to how much I spent, not to buy the property, but to place it as a rental property. So I'm looking at the down payment. Let's assume I'm using a mortgage. So whatever the down payment is, down payment, closing costs, mortgage fees, renovations that I added, maybe $35,000, and maybe some other miscellaneous stuff, right? So I'm just going to say, I'm not saying if this house is $200,000 and my down payment is 20%, which is $40,000, that's the starting. But I spent another $30 for the TLC in this case, so it's $70. And now I spend another $10 on closing costs, whatever. So it's we got to $80,000. So that's my baseline. So all those factors, indicators of ROI are going to be compared towards my initial investment, and that's how I measure the ROI. Okay, hopefully that helps understanding, because it's I thought I'm going to be able to do it in a shorter version, but a lot of people just look at the cash on cash. Yes, I understand, but is cash on cash telling the entire story here? Is there more to it? Can you say, oh, there's no inflation, that doesn't exist? Well, I beg to differ. Look at the past 60 years, or the mortgage principal. When you borrow $100,000 and you pay $10,000, not you, the tenant pays the $10,000, right? The tenant from the rent paid the $10,000 over the next 5 years, and this is money in your walls. It is money in your walls. It's not there. It's $10,000 or $100,000 is not yours. You're borrowing it. It was paid. Now part of it is yours from the rent. You didn't pay for it. The rent paid for it. The cash flow already factors that the fact that the rent is covering for it. So it's there. We just tend to be, a lot of us, I don't know if you're the same way, but a lot of us just think, oh, cash on cash. Well, okay, I get it, right? And then when I tell 15%, people are like, oh my God. I got to tell you a little story, and I will wrap up with this. And thank you, Curtis, again for the questions. You're awesome, man. About four years ago, I speak to one of my investor, almost an investor. Now him and his wife are investors. And at the time, we're just kind of starting to work together. And this guy is very, very sharp, very, very keen, okay? And we talk. And he's a very, he used to work for Google. Now he works from a second startup. The guy is sharp. I'll tell you that. Very, very sharp. Every conversation with him, I can tell he's looking at the numbers. He's very, Silicon Valley engineer, but super smart, right? And he goes, Danny, I don't understand something. Why are you factoring into the deal my down payment? I understand. We went through this entire ROI, explanation, and he says, I don't understand. Why are you factoring the down payment? The down payment is my money. All I did is I took it from the left pocket and put it in the right pocket. It's my money. I just moved it from one pocket to another. Why are you factoring it? It should not be part of the analysis. And I told him the following. I said, listen, first of all, what an amazing observation. I've never actually thought about it. Amazing observation. And I think that shows so much. So you see, I remember this conversation till now. And I told him, I want to tell you two things about it. Number one, the reason I factor it in is because I consider any money out, not in my bank account, working. Working, it's also risk. Something happens, right? Something happens, your money is at risk. So it's not really in your pocket, it's in your control, but it's out there working and taking a risk. So that's the first reason I am saying I have to factor it in. The second and more important reason is if I would not factor that money in, I would be out of business. And he says, what do you mean out of business? Why would you be out of business? I say, listen, here's what's going to happen. I'm already showing, because the way I analyze properties, I'm already showing very good returns relatively to what people check and see, like compared to cap rate and cash on cash. And, I'm already on the border of too good to be true. Right? People are, if it's too good to be true, it must be. Okay. I understand. I'm the same way. If I take away my down payment out of that equation, my 15% ROI that I'm talking about will jump to 40%. Nobody will believe them. People already have hard time understanding how I get to 15%, right? And remember, it's not 15% guarantee. There's no guarantee. I'm not guaranteeing anything. There's not 15% consistent year after year. It's more when we analyze the performance over 5 years. What happens in 5 years? It's not like you would go, oh, year number 2, 15. Oh, I only got 6 in year number 2. Danny is wrong. Okay, no. You got to look at the period of 5 years with the conservative assumptions we made, no guarantees, and that's what will probably happen. Okay, if you're not sure, 10 years even better. 10 years we'll have those cycles in and more, kind of streamlined. The curve is better, so to speak. Now, going to that conversation, I said, listen, people will not believe that you're making 40% on the money. Now, if you really think about it, he's absolutely right. When I invest in a property, the down payment is just shifting money from the left pocket to the right pocket. The actual spending is money that I'm spending out. Closing costs, mortgage costs, even the money I'm putting into the walls or to fix the house is, you can actually think, they're part of the shifting money from one pocket to another. So he agreed to that assumption, but the point was that if I would take it out, it will make my formula even better. So I hope that helps with answering. And I think it's a great anecdote to finish on for today. I want to say again, check out the different websites, check out the different information. A lot of it was, I have put a lot of free, information online. I do have some paid courses as well. My Facebook page is full of videos as well, but they're also on YouTube. It's easier to consume them on YouTube. And again, I am switching from the personal page to the business page. I don't know if it interests you. I'm just saying that here you don't see, if you scroll down, you won't see much in videos. Hopefully that will change in the coming months. So I'm definitely assuming that next week we're going to meet here again. I hope to see you here. I hope to hear from you. I hope to, you'll reach out and see if there's something we can do together. No guarantees. I talk to a lot of investors every week. Yes, even now, current times, I do talk to investors. We are actually making offers, buying houses, renovating. Things have obviously shifted a little bit. Things are not as they were at the beginning of the year, but nonetheless, nothing, things have paused for a month and a half, and they're definitely back up and running as we speak. So thank you very much, everyone. Curtis, thank you for your questions. Please join us again. And if you join, ask more questions. I love it. Have a terrific rest of your day. Have a terrific weekend. Hope to see and talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.